Hello everybody, Joshua McKenzie here. I'm doing this video to help with to help our animators at the HashBang studio get acquainted with Unity whenever they need to import their animations that they've done in Maya or 3ds Max or Blender, whichever, so that they actually meet the qualities that we're looking for whenever we bring them into the project. So let's go ahead and start off by creating a new project. Yeah, there we go. And just new project. And we're just going to call this animation importer. How about that? There we go. I'm just going to create it on my desktop. It's fine. Go ahead. And so when we start up this project, let's go ahead and start up a new scene. And let's just go ahead and save the scene right here. And we can call it whatever we want. I'm just going to call it main. Right? And we're going to add a few things in here in the scene just so that we can keep a good sense of how things are going. We'll start off with a plane to give it a ground, and then we'll also we'll put in a cube, bring it up, scale it to 2 meters tall, and then we'll do some vertex snapping to snap it to the plane. Right. So this is just in here just so that we get a good sense of how big the scene is, because this cube is 2 meters tall by 1 meter by 1 meter. So we can actually use this to make sure that the animations that we import are to the proper scale that they should be when we import them. And if they're not, there's some things that we can do to fix that in Unity, but it's usually best that it's handled inside whatever application you've done it in, inside Maya or 3ds Max or whichever. Alright, so let's go ahead and actually get our reference data in here. So if you're just using an animation and you're typically using an actual rig to reference it by, it's not necessary for most animations, but on some you might actually need it. And in this example, I'm going to show you what you're going to do with that. So I'm going to grab this character, which is in actually one of the projects for HashBang. Not into the scene, into the project. And I'm including the FDX metadata file as well, so that it should also include all the special data that's actually part of this asset. So if you want to grab this, you can actually you can ask for it from your project to actually get the actual FBX data with all the changes for the rig that they're using in the project. Should be pretty easy for them to hand it to you. And this guy, I believe he was modeled at 18 centimeters tall. So we just did a quick fix to set him up to 180 centimeters or 1.8 meters tall, so that if we bring him into the scene, bam, he's roughly the right size. So, all right. Next thing we're gonna do is this guy's gonna need an animator, something to actually drive his animations on this character. So let's go and create an animator controller. And we're just going to call this, since this guy's a firefighter, we're going to call him Firefighter Animator. There we go. And then select this guy right here in the scene. I should probably move these into separate folders so it's easy for me to keep track of which tab is which. And let's go ahead and assign the only animator that I have in the project to this guy. And then on the animator, we also need to bring in the actual animations. So now let's start to use the actual animations to bring in. For this example, I'm going to be using another animation from the same project. And we'll just go ahead and drop this in here. There we go. And here you go. This is the animation as is, taken from one of our guys, Eddie. And so, as you can see, these are the settings that it comes in by default. This is what Unity assumes are the default settings, which do need to be changed. So first off, this model, as well as the original model, was also imported in as 18 centimeters tall. So they're actually the same scale. And in order for this model to be played properly on this on this rig, we also got to make sure that his scale factor is the same. It solves a lot of problems. Then we go over to the rig and say that this is actually a humanoid rig. We set that up. So he's going to be using an avatar definition that the rig has defined, which was this guy right here. And the reason why we do this is because whenever you bring animations into Unity, Unity needs like a reference point to know how to bend each joint every which way. So basically it needs a T-pose. And typically your animations don't come in with a T-pose. So the rig here is actually already in a T-pose. He's in the proper pose that Unity needs to know exactly how it needs to change the joints and everything. So we're going to be using him as a reference point. Also, I'm using this rig because his avatar's already been set up properly. So if I like run over here to project on this guy, press Y please. And I go to the configure. Save the scene please. You can see that it's actually mapping to the proper joints on the that Unity will actually use across all animations, that are going to be applied to this rig. So by default, that would have been like, I believe Unity would believe it was going to try to hook the root joint as the hips, which is not true. So this guy's been fixed up properly to with all these mappings, so that it's actually pointing to the correct animations. So if we run back in here and check that animator, come on, he'll actually play this humanoid animation correctly with it. Actually, he should be able to play it correctly without it, because this animation is actually done pretty well. But it'll also help with, this is actually important whenever we start to blend this animation with other animations. It's important that they're actually mapping to the proper things, because I believe by default Unity would try to bind some joints into the wrong avatar positions, which means that the animation would actually kind of break up in some places. But this should actually fix that. So we run over here. We want to import this animation, and if you were going to get any errors, you would get like a little message box here saying that you have some import errors, and then you could actually run down here to see what those errors are. But this animation actually doesn't have any issues, so we don't have to worry about that. This is a walking animation with a fire extinguisher. So first thing we want to do is probably name the clip so that whenever we search for it in the project, it's actually easy to find. So you don't have like 200 animation clips all named take 001. So we're going to name this firefighter underscore, I think he's carrying an extinguisher, underscore, this is a movement type of animation, and the animation he's doing is walking. Alright, and since this animation's actually looping, we're going to say we want this animation to loop. If we didn't do this, it would only play the animation once, and then he basically would be froze on the last frame. So he'll play it once, and then he'll get stuck on the last frame and actually not do anything. If the animations if they actually jitter between the loop steps, between the first and last frame, we could do something like create a loop pose, which should actually create a seamless transition between the two. But you also want to be careful with that, because if the changes are too abrupt, so like from this, I'll turn this off first. So from this frame versus this frame, which is, I think I just got it. Let's find a good spot like right here. Right. Yeah. You'll see there's a noticeable jump, and if you use like a loop pose, it'll try to interpolate between those two to smooth it out. But you want to be careful with that, because then it actually can make things look a little bit weird. Like now he looks like he's limping. So it's a tool there to help you if you need it. If you have your animations done pretty well, you actually won't need it at all. See, I remove it, and there's actually no change in the animation. It's pretty seamless. Next things you want to look into is that's important is the root motion right here. So this is the average amount of meters that this guy is going to be moving per second over the duration of the entire animation, which for this one is 1 second. So he's moving 0.9 meters per second in this one. If this is 0, basically, and if this was 0 and you didn't have, and it's supposed to be an animation where the character is supposed to be moving in the world, he'll actually just be skating in place. Now, on some projects, that might not matter. You could have the movement being handled through code, but on many projects, most of them, in fact, I see that you want to be using root motion. So, and if you don't specify an actual node to be the root motion, Unity basically assumes the center of mass as the root motion mode, and it just says that depending on where this unit of mass, this center of mass is at this frame versus this frame, determines how it does its root motion. So, which actually works pretty well. Alright, so we go ahead and start up this animation. Let's apply our changes, and then let's apply it to this character in the scene. So we're going to go to the animator, and I'm going to do this really quick, and run to this animation. Here's the animation clip right here. This icon right here, and we're going to pull it. I'm going to move this up here so I can get to pull this into the animator. So whenever the scene starts, the first animation that's going to play is this animation, the movement walking. And since there's nothing else, it's just going to, if it's loopable, it'll loop it. If it's not, it'll just freeze on the last frame. Alright, so make sure that the character in the scene is actually using this animator. He should be. Alright, and we have apply root motion. Alright, so let's just go ahead and start this scene and see how things look. Go. And he has no collider, so he's going to be just walking through everything. And there he goes. He's actually walking off into the sunset. And everything looks fine. Alright? Now, once you're done with that, the next step is to actually export this animation into a file called a Unity package. And send that to the developers that are going to be using this animation in their project, in the main project. Now, some of the things that you want to look out for is basically the file structure that the animation is going to be in, that the file will be in the project. Because if I just exported this as is, right, or I could say that I'll put this into a folder like my whatever folder, right? There we go. Alright, I can type, don't worry. Throw that in there. I can say, okay, let's export it out. Hit export package, and then it's going to show you the asset that you want to export, and basically any other asset that this asset relies on. Well, we don't need to worry about the materials because the XBSX file already includes all those materials internally, so we don't even need to include that. And the kind of rigged avatar asset is should already be in the project. So they don't actually need this. And since we actually, since I actually gave you the in this example, since I actually used the FBX meta file, they should actually have the same IDs, GUI IDs, so they'll link up just fine, even if you don't include the file in the export. So we actually don't need to include any dependencies. So, like, if I click this checkbox down here, oh crap, that did something. What I do? It should actually do the opposite of that. There we go. And this is the only file that you need to export, so let's go ahead and export it. And I'm just going to export this to my desktop and call this my walk animation. Right, hit that, and then I'll go ahead and I'll send that package over to the developer that's going to be using it in their project. And whenever they use it, they're going to have some problems. I go ahead and close that out and start up. Oh, it's going to open up that same one. I meant to open the other project. Yeah, it's going to open the same one. There we go. All right. So whenever they try to import the project in, so this is just a test project that I built. Notice how they have like this huge file structure that they have set up, right? And whenever you import it, say that I'm the developer and I want to import it into this folder. I hit import. I want to import a custom package and the my walk animation package. Open it up. Tells me what I'm going to be importing. If there's going to be any file conflicts or anything like that, it'll show up here. Luckily for this case, there's nothing to worry about, so I don't have to worry about any of that. If you're going to give me, if you're going to be giving your developer a new iteration, a new fix or tweak of that animation to the developer, basically it'll say that you'll get like a file saying like new or like a warning sign saying that this is going to be overwriting another file or something like that, which might be expected, it might be not, but it's just it's there. That's what that's for. Let's go ahead and import it, and hey, notice I wanted to import it into the animations file, but it just basically import it inside a whatever folder in the base, and this could cause problems for the developer because in their project they could have like 80 folders or whatnot, and whenever you export that file out into whatever file structure that you have, and then import it into here, you can run into a huge number of problems where they have no idea what folder, what assets you have imported, where they ended up, right? They have to search through their project to find where it is, and then move it to where it needs to be, right? And we're just gonna include that in there for whatever. And that can cause problems. It's just overhead that they don't need to worry about. Because they might not even use your asset because they don't even know it's there. They might not even find it because there's 500 folders in the project. So what you want to do is make sure that you are aware of the file system of the file hierarchy that they're going to be using. And let's run up over there to the project again. Open project. And so for our example, this guy is going to be inside a folder called, as I'm doing this from memories, art team, I believe. And then inside a folder, animations. Oh, come on. Animations. And since this is a firefighter animation, now I have like a firefighter. And I typically follow like for me, I typically follow like a folder hierarchy that's similar to the name of the clip that's going to be used. So in this case, I'll be using like firefighter, extinguisher, and movement walking, or just movement, and then fighter, folder, movement. And then we just throw this file in there. Now, then let's export this again. Oh, down here. All right, desktop, just override my older. Yes, replace it. All right, now let's go to the other project and import it. Now you notice I only sent the actual animation itself. I didn't actually include the animator. I didn't include the scene. I didn't include the rig because the developer doesn't really need any of that. He just needs the actual animation file itself and the meta file that'll be included with it whenever you do the import. It's kind of hidden in the hierarchy, but each and every object in this scene, in this panel, basically has a meta file hidden with it that it doesn't show you, but it's there for the reference. Anyway, let's go ahead and import this guy into the scene. Here. Right. So it's going to be imported into animations, and then it's going to be creating a firefighter folder, a movement folder, and then putting this file inside of that. And that's perfectly fine. So let's put that in there. It's easy to find, and it's here. There we go. So now we take a look at the character in the scene. The developers can now then take a look at that animations and then put whatever animations they have on that. And look, here we go. Easily found. We run the scene and make sure that, yeah, root motion set. And there he goes. Animation works just fine. And the developer, literally all he had to do was just import it and then just attach it into his animator. And his animator could be, it could have like 6 or 7 layers, and then like 100 or so state. It could have 200, 300 states, and he'll put your animations into like several different ones. And that's it. All he had to do on his end was to basically just hook it up in here and just import your package, and everything is good to go. And as you can see, the guy's way off there in the distance. Still doing his thing, and everything is working just fine, working beautifully. All right, and that's it. That's everything that you need to do in Unity to get to make sure that the animations are working as you want them to before you send them out to the actual client. All right, and if there's actually any problems, troubleshootings that you're having with that, you can always ask in the Slack chat or whichever to help figure that out. All right.